So I want to talk to you about something. I want to talk to you about what you're thinking. You ever had that conversation? Maybe with your spouse or a friend. It's like, what you thinking? And you can't possibly tell that person everything that's going through your mind right then. So you tell them, oh, nothing. But the truth of the matter is most of us, our minds are racing 1,000 miles an hour all the time. All the time, we've got all kinds of things going on in our heads. We've got things about our insecurities. We've got things about our wishes and our dreams and our hopes and our dashed hopes. And we have thoughts about how we've been hurt. We have thoughts about what we're going to do tomorrow. We have thoughts about what we're going to eat tonight. We have thoughts, we have thoughts, we have thoughts, we have thoughts. And doesn't it seem like at times that those thoughts own you? It seems like those thoughts should be better in line with something. Like, why did I just think that? Why did I just have that thought? And it tends to be able, our thoughts tend to be, in fact, I dare suggest that our thoughts has a more effective way of dragging us into a pit than anything anyone can say or do to us. Our thoughts, I once heard it said that sin will take you further than you wanted to go and keep you longer than you wanted to stay. I feel like the same is true of our thoughts. I feel like sometimes you can become a captive of your thoughts, but that's not what we're called to do. We're called to take our thoughts captive and make them obedient to Christ. And so we'll talk about that more throughout the rest of this week. But today I want to look at a passage that's found in Proverbs chapter 3. Here's what the proverb writer says. Trust in the Lord your God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, or in all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. And so there's several concepts here that I kind of want to break down, and then we're going to keep talking about this stinking thinking thing later. But the first part there is trust in the Lord. I think trust is something that most of us have trouble with. You see, trust is something, the kind of trust that he's talking about is the kind of trust we see in children. When and I've shared this before, but I remember when my kids were small and I used to toss them in the air and what they would ask for when I would throw them in the air this high is they would go higher. Why? Because they got to truly experience the joy of flying. And why were they able to do that? They were able to do that because they trusted me. My wife, not so much, because she thought I threw them way too high oftentimes, but they trusted me. They trusted me explicitly. So they were able to just enjoy what they were experiencing. And so the proverb writer says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. It's one of those things where he wants you to understand that you've got to go all in. You've got to go all in. You've got to trust him completely. You have to trust him when he says you are who you are. You have to trust him when he says to do what he says to do. You have to trust him when he tells you how to deal with certain things that you need to deal with. If you are left to your own understanding and your own mind and your own thoughts, you will almost inevitably always do it incorrectly. It's what happens to us. It's why we call it stinkin' thinking, which is what we're going to talk about all this week. We're going to talk about stinkin' thinking. We have to learn. The first part of fixing your stinkin' thinking is you've got to spend some time learning that you can trust God. There's a story I think it's in Malachi. I probably should have looked it up, but there's a story where God is calling out his people, and he's saying that they have robbed him. You have robbed me of your tithes and offerings. And then he says something interesting. He says, test me in this. Do what I tell you to do, and then watch me do what I promise I'll do. And that's kind of what we need to start doing as a people. We need to start doing what he tells us to do, even when, maybe especially when we don't feel like it. God calls us out of darkness and into marvelous light. Why were we in the darkness in the first place? It's because of our stinking thinking. We try to navigate this life without his counsel, when in fact we should be navigating this life only by his counsel. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know. Like, I don't know what God wants for me or where God wants me to go. And I am quite certain of this one thing. If you will trust in the Lord with all your heart and you will submit to him or acknowledge him in all your ways, he will make your path straight. But it's the ultimate trust fall, isn't it? You remember the trust fall. You remember when you stand and you hold your hands out and you'd close your eyes and you'd fall back and somebody's supposed to catch you and you're supposed to completely just let yourself go and they're going to catch you. This is what this is. Except that we can look at evidences of God's way being the only way. How many of you ever watch one of those movies and you're watching the movie? Maybe it's a movie you've seen already. I'm really guilty of this. You ever watch one of those movies and you're watching and you're like, don't go in that room. Like, can't you hear the music? Like, I know better. I know that you going in that room is going to cause you some serious pain and some trouble. Whatever you do, don't go in there. Why were you so stupid? And we yell at the screen because, well, they can't hear us. I almost feel like God has to be doing that with us at times. Because we tend to lean on our own understanding. We have this little bitty glimpse of reality, and we build an entire world around it. God has the entire world in his vision. And we're like, yeah, I know that this has worked for you in the past, but ain't working for me. And I think we do that a lot. And I think that's what the proverb writer is saying. Look, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In everything you do, submit to him. What he's saying is do it his way. I raised 3 children, and one of the most frustrating things as a dad is when you tell your children exactly what they're supposed to do and exactly the way they're supposed to do it. They decide to do it their own way. Though you told them if they do it the way they were going to do it, you told them exactly what would happen. And then it happens. And after you tell them, I told you so, you hope they learn. And God has done so much for us. He's given us so many truths about how we're supposed to live this life. I really believe there are times that you just have to win the battle with your own understanding. And you just have to do it God's way. Even though you think it might make you look like a chump. Even though you think it might hurt you. You're doing it because you trust God. You trust his methods. You trust his promises. You trust him with all your heart. And you realize that you've been walking a really crooked road, and you know he can make your path straight. We're going to talk way more about this over the next couple of days. I'll get into some more detail. I've got a couple other passages I want to share with you, but I'd like you to just ruminate on this text, Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord your God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, or in all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Sometimes you just got to do it the way he says to do it, even if you don't understand it. I hope you'll think about this. And we'll talk more about Stinkin' Thinkin' tomorrow. God bless you. This has been another edition of Coffee and the Word.